Hi, my name is Ignacio with Full Stack Creative. These are the Barefoot MicroMain 27s Gen 1s, and these are the Barefoot Footprint 01s. Today I'm going to talk to you about why I love these speakers and which one I would buy if I had the money.
This is what you need.
Console and all the preamps and inverters. Now if you want to kick it up a notch,
Much more high-powered camera. When you're shooting with this,
Overlapping frequency ranges and just masking. It's an incredibly useful tool. The MicroMain 27s serve as main monitors operating in the near field position. They have sealed cabinets with no ports. The front baffle houses 3 drivers, a 1-inch soft dome tweeter, and 2 5-inch mid-range drivers. The MicroMain 27 has 2 10-inch base drivers with aluminum cones that are driven in phase so that both cones move in and out together. Some observations about the MicroMain 27s is that the bass feels very clean and tight. The mid-range feels very dynamic, very punchy, and very detailed. And while these speakers can get very loud, they also retain a surprising amount of detail even at low volumes, which is like quite a bit of a relief during mixing when you're going to be referencing at various volumes like over the course of like an entire mix. The soundstage of the MicroMain 27s feels extremely precise. Just listening to some like well done electronic records, you can really hear like this extreme involved sense of dimensionality that these speakers present. I really like using these speakers during production. I feel like I get a bit of a step ahead, and there's not so much to do during the transition from production into mixing. It's because I feel like I've had a bit of an insight because of these speakers, like the insight that these speakers present. I feel like they can take me a little bit farther during the production phase where I'm sort of making EQ and compression decisions like on the fly, and I feel very confident about the decisions that I'm making just because of the detail that these speakers present. So I work primarily with a lot of electronic music and a lot of hip hop music, and I would say that these speakers definitely like play into that genre set very well. They are a lot of fun to work on. The dynamics in the mid-range like make it a really fun experience to move from production into vocal tracking into mixing and finalization. One additional drawback of the MicroMain 27s that I would say I have noticed after working on them for quite a bit of time is that the top end past like 14 kilohertz seems to lack the detail and presence that I would come to expect from a set of near fields. That really comes into play with sibilance or just like breathiness and brightness, and at first it can be a little bit tricky to sort of figure out like what is good bright and what is like too much on these speakers, and I oftentimes will just pick a reliable set of reference headphones to have by my side during mixing if I'm ever in doubt. The FPO1s have horizontally oriented 8-inch paper diaphragm bass drivers, a 4-inch aluminum mid-range driver with an aluminum phase plug, and the tweeter is a 1-inch ring radiator. The low end on the FPO1s feels very present and very detailed even at low volumes, which is something that I think is very important if you're working in like a smaller room or a less treated room, although it is generally pretty important to have a treated room if you're going to be buying speakers at this price point. The detail in the tip top of the audible range, just like past 10K, it feels a lot easier to hear than on other monitors. I feel as though you'll have to reach for a set of headphones less to sort of like hear what's going on up there, just because these speakers sort of like present a great amount of detail up there. The mid-range imaging feels very accurate, very involved. It really puts you in the experience, which is awesome from a set of speakers that are this small, just because usually you don't really get that sense of depth and dimension until you start reaching for much larger sets of speakers. The MicroMain 27 Generation 1s will set you back anywhere from $6,000 to $7,000 for the pair, and the Footprint 01s will set you back about $4,000 for the pair. With the price point of the MicroMain 27s, you could also reach for a pair of Focal Trio 6Bs or a pair of Amphion 218s. And at a comparable price point for the Footprint 01s at about $4,000, you could reach for a pair of PMC 225s. The MicroMain 27s clock in at about 70 pounds, whereas the Focal Trio 6Bs clock in at about 44 pounds each, and the Amphion 218s clock in at about 40 each. So one thing to keep in mind is that the setup for the MicroMain 27s onto the stand itself is like a bit of a task. You need multiple people, as in more than 2 people, because you need 2 people to hold up the speaker up onto the stand. There's like those 2 sets of bars that are like extending across the side of the speaker, and you need a person on standby ready to like drill the screw like into the frame of the speaker. Not exactly like just throwing a speaker up on a stand and you're good to go. One reason I might give the MicroMain 27s a slight edge over the other 2 speaker models that we mentioned before is something that I think doesn't get talked about very much, like when it comes down to something as like coldly calculated as like a pair of near field monitors, is how fun they are to work on. You know, I think with a lot of extremely accurate sets of monitors, they give you a lot of detail, a lot of clarity, and with that comes this sense of like analysis that is like attached to it. where you're picking out all of these little details and your brain becomes very, very involved in the task of what you're doing. But I think it's really important as a mixing engineer that you're having fun, that you're enjoying yourself. And these speakers are a blast to work on. When a mix is going well and you really feel the pieces coming together, it's the speakers really respond to that. They really give you that positive feedback, and I think that's extremely important. I was watching a mix with the Masters Q&A with Michael Brower, and a small aside that he had in the midst of this barrage of questions about how much is too much EQ, or what do you consider to be heavy EQ, and all of these like very nitpicky questions, he sort of like threw up his arms and was like, look, man, it's music. Just try to have some fun with it,
What are you thinking about? You shouldn't be thinking. It's music. Just react.
And I think like these, as a set of tools, as a mixer, they really kind of like help me ease into that place of having a lot of fun. When comparing the MicroMain 27s to a set of speakers in a similar price point, I think what you've got is a unique design that stands above the hype. The horizontally opposed bass drivers really offer a marked low extension, a great amount of detail and punch, whilst keeping the cabinet really steady just because of their design. And the orientation of the mid-range drivers provides a great deal of dimensionality and detail in the image and the soundstage. And when comparing the Footprint 01s to the PMC 225s, I would say that you've got a speaker that performs well above its weight class, retains its detail even at extremely low volumes, and the functionality that you get from the multi-modeling speaker modes is something that provides a great deal of flexibility and additional insight during mixing. And speaking of the multi-modeling feature, the Barefoot Footprint 01s come equipped with a small rotary box that is plugged into the back of the speakers via a pair of 3.5mm jacks. This box has a 4-position dial, and when you switch to the different positions, it models the frequency response and supposed behavior of a pair of NS10s, as well as a pair of Oratone mix cubes. The NS10s are considered one of like the greatest mixing speakers of all time because of their very limited bandwidth. They don't have very much of a low extension or that much of a high extension either. So what you're getting is a lot of the mid-range, which is what the human ear reproduces and perceives with the highest amount of detail from place to place. A lot of engineers use the NS10 to tighten up their mixes to get them to a point where they reproduce well on a lot of different systems. The Oratone, I think, is something like pretty much within the same school of thought. It's a very limited bandwidth. It gives you just a different perspective. When you have like a very hi-fi set of speakers that's full range, 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, you have a tendency to dial in on every single little detail because these speakers present a great deal of detail. But being able to switch to a small set of speakers, or an emulation of a small set of speakers, such as the NS10 or the mix cubes as they're known, it gives you sort of like this macro perspective where you can kind of back up and see how everything is playing with one another, how everything is working dynamically, how everything is working within overlapping frequency ranges, if there's any masking, how your reverbs are translating in a smaller, more condensed frequency environment such as that. You can model like a hi-fi system as well with them, which basically has like a smiley face curve. It gives you a little bit more bass and a little bit more top end to see how your mix would translate in a hi-fi home system. So I would say the one thing to keep in mind about the multi-modeling function that the FP01s provide is that on paper, it really does make sense to be able to have all of these different speaker models to choose from, to sort of compare your mix. However, I think it's important to keep in mind that that frequency range, I think, is the only thing that these speakers will be able to faithfully recreate. However, a big part of why these speakers were so popular, like in practice and in use, was the design of the woofers. Like, they were made out of paper. So they respond differently to dynamics and they reveal a different set of dynamic characteristics from mix to mix. Obviously, the speakers can't change like what material the woofers are made of, so all they can really do is emulate frequency range. However, I still think it's like a very, very useful tool. I think it can get pretty close. Sometimes manufacturers will throw in kind of like gimmicky, hypey little features to excite people in order to entice a purchase. And I think the multi-modeling speaker, while not 100% accurate or true to what it claims to be, I still think it's an incredibly useful tool that I use on nearly every single mix, like when I'm referencing on the FPO ones. So chances are, if you're watching this video, you are either a studio owner with a full-size facility, or you have some type of a home setup. Or you're neither, and you're like me and you like watching videos about things that you can't really afford right now. If I'm a studio owner and I've got $6 to $7K to spend on a pair of near-field monitors, I would probably have to give the edge to the MicroMain 27s over, say, the Focal Trio 6Bs. It probably boils down to personal preference, but I would say that with such a unique design that really delivers and stands over the hype, the 27s just get me back to a place where I'm having a lot of fun working on music. They're great transitional monitors where I can take a session from the production phase into the tracking and mixing phases very quickly, very efficiently, and I'm having a blast the whole time. And it really removes the sense of like intensive analysis that is all too common with a lot of these high-end near-field monitors. So if I'm a home studio owner with about $6,000 to $7,000 to spend on a pair of near-fields, my decision would lie solely based on whether or not my room is treated or not. If my room is not treated, I would probably just reach for a set of the comparison speakers and save about $1,000. So I can invest that $1,000 plus the difference into treating my room, and that alone would overpower any edge that the MicroMain 27s would give by themselves. However, if the room is already treated, then my decision remains the same. If I'm a studio owner with $4,000 to spend on a pair of near-fields, I think the decision, if you're talking about the footprints in particular, really boils down to whether or not you will get mileage out of the additional features that the footprints provide. One of the comparison speakers that we listed are the PMC Two Two 5s. Myself personally am a huge fan of PMC. All their products are absolutely incredible. I think that if you don't really find yourself all that enticed by the idea of modeling a pair of NS10s or mix cubes, or if you already own a pair of NS10s or a pair of mix cubes, you'd be better off going with PMC 225s, just off of the strength of like the pedigree of that company, the strength of the build that they always provide, and the quality of the product that they've been known to bring for many, many years. I spent like 4 years working in front of a pair of PMC MB01s. They weren't like the newest PMCs on the market, definitely not the flashiest pair of PMCs, but it was by and large one of the most immersive and stunning audio experiences I think I can recant to date. They are just absolutely stunning monitors. I think to have even a slice of that experience in a set of near fields is something that would be sorely missed. So I hope this video has been helpful and educational if you guys are in the market for purchasing a new pair of speakers in this price range. I'm Ignacio with Full Stack Creative, and I'll see you guys next time.
Hi, my name's Circa, and I am a singer, songwriter, rapper, entrepreneur, marketer, videographer, editor. He's a producer and an artist. He's a producer, artist, writer, model. And we work here out of this recording studio in the heart of downtown Orlando, which is also a pretty badass lounge. Production studio, in addition to being an editing bay and a podcast studio. We do a whole lot of shit here, but that's not just us. Everyone around the world is doing a whole lot of shit in this day and age, and that's why we make videos. This is Full Stack Creative, where we show you how to get your videography, graphic design, photography, artwork, audio engineering, production, coding, marketing, business building, website design, Facebook ads, Ableton Live, Adobe Suite, all that good stuff happens right here. So if you are a full stack creative, what I need you to do is just click the subscribe button. Don't smash it. Don't crush it. Just give me a click on that subscribe button, and let's celebrate this wonderful era in which we get to do everything. With these hands, we make fire. I promise you're gonna dig what we've got coming out all year, and I will see you in the next video.